Hello everybody and welcome to this video by the Vaidya's Chess Hub, and in this video we are going to learn how to exploit the opening mistakes of our opponents. So if they go wrong in the opening phase, how to get a quick advantage. This video is particularly helpful for the beginners who will often play against other beginners, and there are certain areas where you could exploit to get a quick advantage in the opening itself. So let's get started. I'm going to show you three such examples. So we are going to play the white pieces. In some other video I will tackle the same thing with the black pieces. At the moment though, we're playing with the white pieces, and let's get started with the first one. I would recommend you practice this over the board, and this video is in response to some of our subscribers who wanted to view how to exploit the opening weaknesses and how to go about the opening if our opponent makes some blunders, how to go for a quick kill. So I hope that this video will be helpful for those. So if you are ready, let's get started. Let's say we play e4 in this game and our opponent responds e5. Now if they are both beginners or they are new to chess, 90% of the time you would have this opening played, 1 e4 and black plays 1 e5. White, then we are playing white, so we will develop this minor piece and attack the pawn e5. So we played knight f3, and here the correct moves for black are knight to c6. He could also play d6, and if he wants to play the Russian defense, he could move his knight to f6, attacking our pawn in return. But let's say our opponent, this video is about exploiting mistakes done in the opening, so let's say our opponent plays f6. So now our opponent has just committed a mistake. F6 is not the right way to support this pawn on e5. Mind you, in one of our videos in the Vaidya's Chess Hub, you must have noticed that black can certainly play d6 to support that pawn. That's a Philidor defense. If you haven't seen that video, I recommend you go into our video section and watch that particular video, because that is also fantastic. You'll learn quite a great deal from that video as well. Anyway, coming to the point, in this game, white plays knight f3, and the correct way should have been to defend it with d6, or maybe knight c6, or maybe knight f6. But let's say in the game, black played f6. Now here, there is a wonderful sacrifice. You should play knight takes e5, and black will definitely love to grab the knight. So f takes e5. Now why have we given our knight away for a pawn? Looks like a bad trade, but this is what happens due to that trade. The king is now exposed on this h5 e8 diagonal, which we are going to exploit. So our next move is queen h5 check. Now this again is attacking two pieces, putting king under check and attacking pawn on e5. And such an idea in chess, you all know, is, yes, you're right, is fork or double attack. So this is a double attack, and for this check, let's say our opponent thinks that it's very easy to get out of check just by blocking the check with g6. Of course, we are not going to take this pawn with the queen, because we'll lose our queen for a pawn. But we have a different idea in mind. We'll play queen takes e5 check, and you notice that this is a fork yet again, and this time black cannot avoid losing the rook. Let's say black blocks this check with the queen, and we go ahead and take this rook on h8. So we are already an exchange up. Remember, we have sacrificed our knight and we got the rook in return. It's black's turn to play here. Black could take this pawn and give us a check. Now, very important to remember not to block the check with this bishop, because otherwise g2 pawn falls at the same time c2 pawn is hanging at the moment. So the best way to get out of check here and continue to protect the pawns is by playing king to d1. Now the king supports this pawn, and because the bishop hasn't moved, the bishop controls the g2 square. This protects the pawn on g2. And definitely from this position, white should go on to win the game because he has played so well. Let's go back to the start and go through the moves one more time. So in this game we played e4, black played e5, White played knight to f3, attacking the pawn on e5. That is a perfect move. And black responded incorrectly by defending the pawn with f6, and then knight takes e5, the sacrifice. F takes e5, and now you exploit the open h5e8 diagonal by playing queen h5 check. Black thinks it's easier to block the check, g6, and then play queen takes e5 check, which is a fork, and after queen moves to e7 to block the check, will end up getting the rook on h8. And if queen takes e4, remember the best way to get out of this check is to play king d1, by thereby protecting the c2 and g2 pawns. And white should go on to win this game. If you put this position in a chess engine to calculate, definitely all the engines will support white. They'll probably give it a +3, 3.5, somewhere in that range, I'm very sure. So I want you to actually practice this on the board. Let's go to game number 2. Let's say in this game we played e4, but our opponent this time responded not with the move e5, but let's say he played the move d5. Now this is the Scandinavian. In this, the correct continuation is, of course, to take the pawn. E takes d5. Let's say our opponent grabs it with his queen. Now this is again in contradiction to what your coaches and what your senior players will tell you, not to develop the queen early. Scandinavian defense is like that. In fact, black gives tempo. So I wouldn't recommend that for beginners to try as black, but you should be happy if someone's playing it against you, especially a beginner, because the queen can then be harassed by minor pieces. So often it happens in the games, when beginners are playing against each other. Now white to play here, and the knight here can attack the queen by playing knight c3. Of course, if the knight goes on c3, that is. So let's say knight c3, and now the queen is attacked and queen goes to c6. This is a blunder. Queen c6 is a blunder. And now I would probably want you to pause the video and find for yourself the best move that white has. You can pause the video now. I repeat that it is white to play. Try to find the best move for white. You can pause the video now. Okay, if you had paused the video, I'm sure you found out that white has really a superb move, and the move is to play this bishop onto the b5 square, pinning the queen to the king. And the bishop will enjoy the support of this knight here. So the queen really cannot go anywhere because of the spin. The queen is pinned to the king, so there's no way the queen can move anywhere. And after queen takes b5, knight takes b5, you're also threatening another fork by the knight. So knight takes c7. Here often amateurs and beginners will commit the mistake of attacking the knight more without realizing that actually the knight wanted to move anyway to c7 and give a check. But anyway, let's go back and replay the moves. So you played 1 e4. In this game, black responded 1 d5. E takes d5, queen takes d5, and now you play knight c3 attacking the queen. Queen c6 is a blunder, but now it's important to remember how to exploit it. You play bishop b5, and you notice that the queen is pinned to the king. It's an absolute pin, so the queen, probably the best move is queen takes b5, and after knight takes b5, white should definitely go on to win this game, whether he gets the fork on c7 or not. I'm sure you enjoyed that. Now, one more game. Remember I said we'll look at 3 such games today. We're looking at the third one now. In this particular game, black will simply try and copy white in the first few opening moves. So let's say you play e4, and black, not this time, it doesn't go for Scandinavian. Let's say he plays e5, and then you play knight to f3, and black's just copying you, plays knight f6. By the way, this is the Russian defense, also known as Petrov defense, and black often employs this whenever black is interested in a draw. It is easy to equalize in this position. Now, of course, you should go ahead and capture this. So knight takes e5, and let's say black is still trying to copy you. Knight takes e4. By the way, the correct move here for black is to play d6. Try to scare the knight away and only then to recapture the pawn. That should be the correct way. But let's say black is simply trying to copy, so he'll play knight takes e4, and now you can play queen e2, attacking his knight. Now here black will realize, okay, I'm being attacked, so he'll probably go back to f6, and now you notice that the king and our queen in the same file, so if the knight moves, it will be a discovered check, and the knight could really go to a square where he will cause maximum damage. So I want you to pause the video and find out the best move for white in this position. You can pause the video now. And if you had paused the video, I'm sure that you've already found the answer. The knight moving to c6 check. Now if beginners should understand how is this a check, because you'll be wondering with this move, why can't the pawn simply take the knight? It's because our queen has delivered this check. The knight was on the e5 square, it moved, and so the queen is now delivering a check from its square e2. Now here, if black just blocks the check with his bishop, knight takes d8, king takes d8, and if black's queen blocks the check, you should be wise enough not to take with the queen, you must take with the knight, and after bishop takes knight, the position is completely favoring white. The engine should give you a +7 advantage, which is a huge advantage, and white, if plays even relatively okay chess, should go on to win with that great an advantage of having a queen. Now let's go back to replay the moves of this game before we conclude. White played e4, black played e5, white played knight to f3, black responded knight f6, white took, knight takes e5, black is just copying in this game if you remember. So black played knight takes e4, you play queen e2, the knight was attacked, so black retreats his knight to f6, and now a wonderful discovered check, knight c6 check. So it's a check by our queen, the knight went out of the way, and the knight is attacking the queen and controlling e7 square. If the bishop blocks it, the knight will take the queen, and if queen e7, the knight takes e7. Now, from all of these three videos, you must have learned a great deal, I'm sure. And I actually want you to set this up on the board and play right from the start, practice the moves, understand how the weaknesses were exploited, and let me know if they were useful when you played your games. So feel free to leave your comments and your suggestions in either the forum or the comments below this video. And I really hope that this video was very informative, and as I always say, keep playing, keep enjoying, keep learning, and thank you so much for watching this video. Cheers.